Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another What I'm Reading Right Now video here on the channel. This is the series where I talk about what I have been reading, what I'm currently reading, and what I'm going to be reading next. It was my week off last week, so I have 2 weeks worth of reading to catch you up on. Let's go! I'm pretty sure I finished 11 things since last time we spoke, which sounds like a lot. A lot of them are novellas, because I'm doing a kind of bigger, broader novella project at the moment. I'm excited to talk to you about these. I'm not going to dwell on it for too long, and this video will be too long. Let's go! First thing that I finished was my reread of Dreams Bigger Than Heartbreak by Charlie Jane Anders. This is the second book in the Unstoppables series. I am really enjoying this reread actually. I still think these books have a lot that I would probably change about them if I were editing them, for example. But I do think they're very good. I think there's some really interesting world-building ideas in there. If you like Charlie Jane Anders' kind of slightly off-the-wall writing, I think you'll enjoy these. The second one is better than the first in that it has a little bit more structure to it. The first one feels a bit like a bunch of stuff comes at you from seemingly nowhere. The second book, at least you're expecting some of it, and I think the way that it tackles some of the fallout of the first book is really sort of gentle and well thought out. I think it works very well. I'm in the middle of the third one at the moment. I'll come on to that when we talk about what I'm currently reading. Then I finished an audiobook of The Black God's Drums by P. Jelly Clark. This has been on my list of books that I want to read for quite some time, and I was sewing at the weekend. Amazing. Actually sewing. Who am I? And I thought this is the right time to pick this up. I very much enjoyed this. I liked reading it, sitting down, listening to it all in one sitting. This is a story set in New Orleans, and we have characters coming together in order to go and retrieve this weapon, the Black God's Drums, from somebody who is selling it to the highest bidder. It's a really interesting story. I really enjoyed it. I thought the main character was fantastic. I would really recommend this. I won't talk about these novellas too much because I don't want to spoil them, but if you liked P. Jelly Clark's other stuff, I think you would enjoy this. I still think that the Dead Gin series is probably my favourite, but I think that's a setting thing more than anything else. After that, I listened to Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. This is one of the Nebula-nominated novellas for this year, I believe. I'm pretty sure it is, and I hadn't read it, so I thought, why not pick it up? I really enjoyed this. I thought this was so good. It is set in Chicago? Am I making that up? I really hope I'm not making that up. Yes, it is Chicago. And we have a main character who is a warlock, detective, photographer kind of person, and it is in this time period where obviously being gay was not socially acceptable, was in fact illegal, but her and her partner want to go and move to San Francisco. However, our main character knows that her days are numbered, and in order to stop her days from being quite so numbered, she needs to track down this serial killer, the White City Vampire. And it's just a fantastic story. It's really beautifully written. It's got that kind of sense of adventure and pacing of a full-length novel, but packed into a novella, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I really, really enjoyed this. After that, I finished my next Edge Chronicles read, The Immortals. This is kind of the biggest, chunkiest book in the series, because it was intended to be the end of the series, and then they wrote more of them. This is as far as I'd ever read up to. So this was where my nostalgia lens ends. I really enjoy this book. I do think it's probably too long. I think it's a bunch of books packed into one. I still think it's really good. I like the flow of the story. I like the callbacks to previous books. I like the characters. I had a good time. We're going to do an Edge Chronicles wrap up at some point where this is all going to make sense to the people who actually care about this series. After that, I picked up my review copy of Flowerheart by Catherine Bakewell. I did enjoy this. I think if you like this kind of cozy, cottagecore kind of YA, this would be a good book for you. I'm going to put it down because it's way too shiny. In its arc form, I do think it's a really sweet, lovely story. We have this main character who has a magic that she cannot control that involves flowers springing up everywhere while she does her magic, and they're going to take away her magic, but at the last minute she ends up cursing her father by accident and having to unite with her childhood best friend who happens to be a very attractive magician in order to try and control her magic and fix her father. It is a story that I think probably ticks every box you would expect it to tick, but I did very much enjoy it, and it's also a bi-main character, which I appreciated. I think if you liked something like Sorcery of Thorns, but you maybe wanted to take some of the spook out of it a little bit, it's sort of like that. It's got a lot of cozy familiarity to it. I think you'll probably know if this is a book you're going to enjoy. For me, it's probably a book I would pick up again if I was in like an emotional state and I wanted just something really easy to read, perhaps in the bath. I'm talking too fast. I'm sorry, I've had a lot of coffee today. After that, another novella. I finished Defect by Nino Cipri. This is the sequel to Finna, which I read 3 weeks ago at this point, but in the last video I talked about it. I thought this was good. I think Finna is probably better of the two. I don't know, I think it probably depends what you like about the series. It's following different characters in the same legally distinct from IKEA store, and it still has that supernatural element to it. It's still very anti-capitalism. It's still very I don't even know what to describe it as being pro. It's a good book. It's definitely good. I think personally I preferred Finna, and I would read Finna again, but I would definitely actually recommend this series. I thought they were very interesting, and if you want kind of slightly supernatural stuff set in legally distinct from IKEA, this would be one of the options you can go for. There are others. More novellas. I'm sorry, there are so many of these. I finished Prime Meridian by Silvia Marina Garcia because this had been on my novellas I should read list for a long time. I very much enjoyed this. This is set in the future, I believe, in Mexico, where we have our main character who is desperate to go to Mars. Her dream is to go to Mars, but she's down on her luck. She hasn't got a proper job. She's working as kind of like a gig economy friend, and everything's going wrong for her, and it's that kind of character study, but with the looming background knowledge that she'd really love to go to Mars. This was a really great novella. It's not very long. It's Silvia Marina Garcia writing exceptionally well, as she always does. I'm not going to spoil too much about this because I think you do need to check it out for yourself, but I would recommend it if you were looking for novellas to read and you know you like Silvia Marina Garcia's writing. After all of that time, I finally finished The Storm Beneath the Midnight Sun by Alexander Dan Wilhelmsen, the sequel to... Can I get this out without destroying everything? The sequel to Shadows of the Short Days. This was an experience. It's about 660 pages or so, and it is decidedly too long. I think if you cut it down greatly, I would have had a much better time with it. It was a bit of a slog. I think in that slog, there were some real gems. There was some great storytelling, there was some really interesting world building. It's a really cool fantasy world that he's created in this alternate Iceland. However, broadly speaking, I got a little bit bogged down in it. I don't think he writes very likeable characters, but not in that dislikable character that you're still happy to read kind of way. I will say, if you are planning to pick this up, do look up the content warnings. I didn't, and I regretted it, especially things around pregnancy, which is a personal, it's not my favourite thing to read. I would recommend looking up those content warnings if you're planning on picking this up, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to most people. There are some people in my life who I know would absolutely love this. They are very different from my personal reading taste. I finally delved into the Edge Chronicles books that I have not yet read. This is the first book in the Cade saga, which is called The Nameless One. This was really interesting to me, and this is kind of why I did this series. I wanted to see whether if I peeled the nostalgia filter off my glasses, whether I would still enjoy these books, and I think it's very interesting that this book was not my favourite, and it's going to be something I need to unpack over a bit of time, whether that's just this book, this character, this idea, or if the whole series, if I took away that nostalgia, would I feel the same way about it? This is set maybe a generation after Immortals, which is tracks for the series as a whole, and yeah, I didn't love it, and I don't quite know why yet, and I'm going to have to read the other two books in the trilogy and come back to you as to whether I like them or not. Because obviously I've read the others so many times, and that was my first time ever reading this, maybe I'd feel differently about it afterwards. Two more novellas to talk about, and then we will move on. I listened to an audiobook of Gods, Monsters and the Lucky Peach, which came up in my novellas that had been nominated for awards in the past research. This is by Kelly Robson, who I'd not read any of her books before. I liked this a lot. This is, as a lot of novellas are, set in a time where humanity has basically destroyed the Earth at this point. It's a rescue mission for trying to get the environment back, and our main character's generation are the first who've kind of come out of underground hiding and tried to fix the world a little bit. However, all of that gets a bit stalled because capitalism decides that time travel would be the best way to do this. So we follow our main character and a couple of other researchers who are her friends, who go on a mission back in time to the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, because our main character is a rivers expert, to do an ecological survey. But they're back in 2000 BC, and there's some stuff going on, and it's interesting, and it's definitely a look at who controls time travel and all of that stuff. A great novella, definitely in that Venn diagram of novellas. It's in that futuristic but environmental kind of zone. I'll make a Venn diagram at some point. I thought this was very well written. I thought it was good. I would recommend it. And lastly, I finished On a Red Station Drifting by Aliette de Bodard. I've been wanting to read more of Aliette de Bodard's novellas recently. It's just been something I've wanted to pick up for a long time, so I'm trying to get through some of them now. This is one of the books in the Shuya universe, or the universe of Shuya, which is the same as... oh, what's it called? Come on. Red Scholar's Wake, which I absolutely loved. I thought this was very good. This is set on a space station that is being monitored by an AI that is also one of their ancestors. That's something that features a lot in the universe of Shuya. That's something that features a lot in this universe. However, something's gone wrong with the honoured ancestress, and the station is kind of coming apart at the seams a little bit because of an influx of refugees, and we have two characters who are trying to make things work in this world. And it's another sort of almost slice of life, but at quite a high point story. I really enjoyed this. As ever, if you don't like Aliette de Bodard's writing, you might not like this. She writes in a very specific way. However, I personally thought it was a great time. A lot of sci-fi in these novellas. I think that's probably upped my sci-fi quota for the year, or my sci-fi ratio for the year, by quite a bit. I don't know if that's just because of a lot of the authors I like write sci-fi novellas and fantasy novels. I don't know. Interesting. I'll have a think about it. I'm only in the middle of one thing at the moment because I'm trying not to pick up too many things at once while I'm very, very busy. I am reading the third book in the Unstoppable series, Promises Stronger Than Darkness by Charlie Jane Anders. I'm really enjoying this, actually. I think the third book, the series has really come into its own. I get what it's doing. I understand it. I'm steeped in that writing style, so it's not feeling like things are coming out of nowhere. It's a really good book, and I'm enjoying it. I still think Charlie Jane Anders paces things strangely, and it's intentional, strange pacing, but I don't know that I always like it. It feels like big moments of the book come at small moments, and small moments feel big, and it's interesting to read that way. I am going to make a video for that series when it's all done though, because I do think it's an interesting one to talk about for YA sci-fi that's doing some interesting stuff. And also, technically, I'm reading The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps because my patrons voted for me to start that series. It's a two novella series, but I haven't actually started it yet. But I'm going to start it today, so I thought I'd bring it up now. This is, I don't really know anything about it yet. I haven't really started it. That's the cover. Still to read this week, I have 3 things left on my set TBR. I have a reread of The Deep by Rivers Solomon, which I'm really looking forward to. This is for an upcoming Overbooked video, and also neatly slots into my novellas project. I have In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I'm really excited to read this. I have a digital review copy. Going to tell you my thoughts on it. Looking forward to it. And I have my reread of The Bone Shard Daughter, which I think I'm going to save for the weekend because I do want to pick this up, and when I've got enough time to really luxuriate in it. A couple of things that have been added to my TBR. I can't remember if I already mentioned that I have a review copy of The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson. If not, here's the information. If I already did, forget I said this. And then also I have a copy of The Battle Drum, which is the sequel to The Final Strife, which I really enjoyed, and I'm excited to reread in order to read The Battle Drum. Yay. In terms of new releases up until the end of March, again, I'm missing a few of these. I need to go back and sit with my spreadsheets for a little bit. A House with Good Bones is out. This is T. Kingfisher. I really want to read this. I need to order a copy. I don't think it's out until early April in the UK, but some of my US friends already have a copy. I know some friends have review copies, and I am most envious. I would really like to read this. I think I've taken it downstairs, but Infinity Gate, which I read earlier in the year, which is a kind of chunky, crunchy sci-fi about multiverses and people and very complicated things. I'm sure my thoughts are in an earlier video that I'll link if I remember. That is now out. And also The Sinister Booksellers of Bath by Garth Nix, which is the sequel to The Left-Handed Booksellers of London. I haven't had big plans to read this just because I haven't got on with most of Garth Nix's recent stuff. However, if someone tells me it's excellent, I might pick it up. That feels like I've been talking for far too long for a Friday video, so thank you for watching this far if you did. The problem with novellas is I can read quite a lot of them, and then there's quite a lot to talk about. What have you been reading? What have you been up to? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books, both linked in the description, as well as my Patreon. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all the ghosts who help me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams and more. If you would like to join their number, that's linked there as well. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. After that, another audiobook novella I listened to, After that, another audiobook novella I listened to, even though I knew the end. Why can't I say it? I swear. Oh, it's here. I have In the Lives of Puppets by T. Jelly Clark. That's not correct.